Hey guys, Silver here, and for the longest time, I've been a huge fan of the Pac-Man series. Pac-Man Championship Edition for the Xbox 360 was one of my first games, and I have fond memories of it as well as its sequel on Switch. I love the colorful neon art style with the fast-paced and modernized arcade gameplay. I also really like all the classic Pac-Man arcade games that you would find in collections like Pac-Man Museum, but when it comes to my favorite style of Pac-Man games, it would definitely have to be the Pac-Man World series. What I love so much about the Pac-Man World games is that they took the elements of the simple arcade game and turned them into fun 3D platformers that fit well in the series, as well as fleshed out the world and the characters. The idea of Pac-Man platformers actually started with Pac-Land, which was actually released a full year before the original Super Mario Bros. So this is technically one of the first 2D platformers ever, and in my opinion, this game is better than Super Mario Bros. During the Genesis and SNES era, they also had Pac-in-Time, which is another platformer where Pac-Man time travels. But when it comes to 3D platformers, it wouldn't be until 1999 when we got the first game in the Pac-Man World trilogy for the PlayStation 1, followed by Pac-Man World 2 in 2002 and Pac-Man World 3 in 2005, both released for the PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and the original Xbox. Just like most people, growing up as a kid, I played the second Pac-Man World game, and I loved it so much. Despite this game coming out a bit before my time, as I grew up with the Wii and Xbox 360 era, I still wanted to play this game really badly after seeing Let's Plays on YouTube. I think a reason why I have such fondness for games like Pac-Man World 2 and Sonic 06 is because these were both games that I wanted to play for a long time after seeing them online. So when I eventually got my hands on them, being able to finally play them was such an awesome feeling. Well, that feeling returned when recently not only was a brand new remake of Pac-Man World 2 coming out, but a couple of years earlier we got a remake of the first Pac-Man World as well, which actually gave me an opportunity to play this game for the first time. So I thought I'd take a look back at the Pac-Man World Repack games and show you guys why I love these games. And today I'll be joined with a fellow Pac-Man fan.
Yo, what's up, dude? Glad I could be part of this retrospective. To be completely honest, I've been a fan of this franchise since like the 2010s, with things like Ghostly Adventures and Pac-Man himself debuting in Super Smash Bros. It got me hooked onto this franchise, and honestly, I'm glad I stayed. Like a lot of fans, I understood how much of a drought we were kinda in the late 2000s. With any new Pac-Man game just being maze after maze, it's obvious it was getting old. And I think Namco themselves were even aware too, because it was mentioned that the first Repack started development in 2020, probably around the anniversary considering it's the same year. That being said, I'm glad to be in an era where Namco actually wants to do more risky stuff with this franchise again. Not just with the World remakes, but like the recent title Shadow Labyrinth, which showcases Pac-Man and the other Namco IPs in a whole new light. An edgy one, but still pretty new.
The story of Pac-Man World 1 revolves around Pac-Man's birthday party being ruined after the ghosts Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde kidnapped everyone in his family thinking they were all Pac-Man somehow. Wow, what a bunch of idiots. But anyways, the one who ordered the ghost to kidnap him was this white timid ghost Orson, who created a Pac-Man robot called Talkman that he disguises himself in. He throws himself a party in Ghost Island since he's jealous of everyone paying attention to Pac-Man instead of him. So Pac-Man, after finding out about his family being captured, he sets out to Ghost Island to save his family and his birthday. This is a pretty simple yet fun plot with a funny setup, and like I mentioned before, I think it's just really charming that they tried to add more character and story in a Pac-Man game. So this was definitely cool to see. When it comes to the gameplay itself, Pac-Man World has less of a sandbox style like Super Mario 64 and more of a linear style like Super Mario 3D Land, which I think is a really good fit for a Pac-Man platformer, and the level design is really solid. Just like the arcade games, there's ghosts, pellets, power pellets, but there's also tons of fun platforming with non-ghost enemies to fight, and there's quite a good amount of collectibles like fruits that unlock chests and Galaxians that unlock more traditional Pac-Man mazes. Where the gameplay for Pac-Man World 2 really shines, however, is Pac-Man's moveset. For being just a yellow circle in the original arcade games, they've done such a great job incorporating new moves and abilities that would make sense for Pac-Man to use. First off, we have the butt bounce, which is a ground pound used to attack enemies, and it's really fun to pull off. There's also the spin dash, the rev roll, that allows Pac-Man to roll around, giving him a boost of speed. And despite this move being similar to the spin dash, it's really fun in its own right and feels natural with Pac-Man's round design. Another really cool ability they gave Pac-Man was being able to shoot food pellets as projectiles, which was a good way to make eating these things more useful. Speaking of pellets, like I said earlier, the power pellet is here and allows you to eat ghosts as Mega Pac-Man, and there's also a chrome pellet that turns into Metal Pac-Man, and it works the same as Metal Mario from Mario 64. The game, despite being relatively easy, it does have some of its frustrating moments, mainly due to the few instances of cheap level design or the depth perception just being bad. There is a new flutter jump move in this remake to help with some of the tricky platforming, but even then it doesn't help that much. Speaking of the remake, I think the updated visuals look pretty good for the most part, but the art style is a bit too generic and cheap looking. I mean, this remake was only $30 at launch, but still. The new cutscenes, however, despite not being CGI anymore, are still charming and well animated. As for the theming of these levels, they're great. Ghost Island features a wide variety of locations. Some of my favorites have to be the Pirate World, the Space World, and the Funhouse. This game also has some really fun set pieces too, especially in the boss fights, like the King Galaxian boss fight that has you play as a shoot 'em up similar to Galaga, or the Clown Racers boss in the Funhouse world that has you race ghost clowns in a fun car racing section. We also can't forget the really cool final boss of Talkman, and after beating him, you surprisingly have two different endings. If you don't save your whole family, then the ending in this remake is the same as the original, where Pac-Man just mercilessly eats Orson. But if you do save everyone in your family, then the good ending actually has Pac-Man forgive Orson, which I thought was a wholesome moment. Each ending is also accompanied by a brand new vocal track called We Are Pac-Man playing in the credits, and depending on the ending, you'll either get a version with English or Japanese vocals. And this song is awesome, and I was pleasantly surprised that this game even had a vocal track. Pac-Man World Repack is a really solid platformer with tons of charm, and it might not be the most special thing ever, but I still had a great time with this game, and I'm really happy that this remake finally let me experience it for the first time.
On a content level, the remake doesn't add much that's new, but most that already existed were tweaked to be much better. The clown race used to be in a top-down view that looked frustrating to control. I'm gonna let you know I just never played the original version of the boss. I haven't gotten that far. And then the Chrome Keeper boss actually takes inspiration from the original game's concept art to look much better because the original also looked like crap. The way the music was handled was also very strange, since we currently don't have a lot of World's tracks in high quality. A lot of us thought that Namco probably would have had this, seeing as the game was being remade, but it seems they don't either because when the game ended up being released, they were actually remade from scratch, but also in low quality, which is still confusing to this day. It did end up getting fixed though, because in a big November update, they not only fixed a problem where the original team wasn't credited, but they ended up going back and fixing those recreated tracks, so that way they now sound like good. They even did a decent job recreating the cutscene music, especially since you can't rip that from the original game, since it's part of a FMV file. I think that's what they're called. For my first time playing the first Pac-Man World game, yeah, I like it.
After the release of Pac-Man World Repack, everyone in the back of their minds was wondering where Pac-Man World 2 Repack was. I'm not sure if the first remake did well sales-wise, but World 2 is the most popular in the trilogy, so it wouldn't make sense if they never got to that one. Well, thankfully, in a Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase, my Game of the Year, Pac-Man World 2 Repack, was announced, and I was overfilled with joy from that announcement. Pac-Man World 2 is a game that means so much to me, and I was so happy that it's finally returning in a modern way. But enough stalling, let's take a look at Pac-Man World 2 Repack. The story of Pac-Man World 2 revolves around Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde sneaking into Pac Village during the night, where they come across the golden fruit tree, and after stealing these golden fruit, a giant demonic looking ghost fittingly named Spooky is released from the tree. This leads to Pac-Man waking up in the morning and being informed by Professor Pac on what happened last night, as well as the hidden lore about the golden fruit and Spooky. So in order to save Pac-Land, Pac-Man sets out to retrieve back the golden fruit and defeat Spooky. I love the story of Pac-Man World 2. It still isn't the most complex plot ever, but the setup is really cool and the stakes are significantly raised. And we even get to learn more about the lore behind the ghosts and the Pac people. Also in this remake, there's significantly more voice acting, and I love that, especially because Pac-Man this time around speaks in this game, and he's even voiced by Martin Sherman, the same voice that Pac-Man has in Pac-Man World 3, which hopefully means that they'll be remaking that game soon as well. I love that they added more cutscenes to the story too, and honestly, playing through another platformer that tries to actually tell a story really reminds me of what Sonic games try to do, which I love. But moving on to the gameplay, it's absolutely amazing. Get ready guys, because I'm going to be be pretty much non-stop glazing this game at this point, but starting off with the visuals, they're so good. They're updated and modernized like any good remake, but it still retains the same amount of charm and the colors really pop this time around. The updated OST is really good too. I was so emotional hearing the remix of the Pac-Man World theme in the first level. It just took me back. Running around and exploring through Pac Village is as fun as ever, and there's so much more stuff to do this time around, like collecting capsule toys, which I always love doing in games, and there's also now more NPCs to talk to, including Pac-Man's family that weren't in the original world too. Though Miss Pac-Man and Chomp Chomp, what did they do to you? But most importantly, the gameplay is phenomenal and is somehow even better than the original. Pac-Man controls so well in this game, and aside from the Sonic Adventure games, Pac-Man in World 2 Repack probably has the best 3D movement in any platformer. His arsenal of moves was also greatly increased, as he retains all the same moves from the first Pac-Man World game, but this time he has a super butt bounce and his iconic kick ability, which can now be performed on ground. Pac-Man controls like a dream, and his amazing controls pair well with this game's amazing level design. This is still a pretty linear type of platformer, but this time around levels are far more big and expansive, and the obstacles in the level design feel natural within the terrain of the different worlds you play through. Speaking of these worlds, my favorites would definitely have to be the first three, being the meadows, forest, and of course the best world in this game, Snowy Mountain. I also really like returning to Ghost Island for the final world, and just like Pac-Man World 1, this game has some pretty fun set pieces as well, like the ice skating sections and piloting a submarine. That boss fight for the submarine took me forever though. Speaking of the boss fights, all of them were actually really difficult this time around, even more so than the bosses in the original Pac-Man World 2. With that being said, I think the bosses in World 2 Repack are much better, and I love the newly added challenge, as well as the more unique boss designs and the fact that they actually use the power of the golden fruit. The final climactic battle between Pac-Man and Spooky is so much more difficult, but it doesn't change how epic of an ending boss this is, with Pac-Man using the golden fruit to turn into Golden Pac-Man. Now this would have already been an amazing remake to an amazing game, but they somehow decided to outdo themselves once again and include an entirely new post-game with harder levels and a brand new epilogue story featuring Talkman. I have yet to play through this post-game, but I definitely can't wait to play through it, as well as 100%ing this game in general. And I absolutely can't wait for all the future Sonic levels being added to Pac-Man World 2. And it's just so cool seeing my two goats collab this way.
Do I have a lot to say about World 2 Repack? First off, I am so glad. You don't know how happy I am at the fact that this game has voice acting, like proper voice acting. Not only that, but Pac-Man himself is speaking. I'm going to be completely honest when I say I never liked the idea of Pac-Man being mute. It's boring. It kind of takes personality away from him. So not only hearing him speak again, but by the Pac-Man World 3 voice, Martin T. Sherman, that is just awesome, man. And it just proves that Namco is just like silently listening to fans, because World 2 Remake, and he's voiced by the fan favorite. Just like the first, I have some thoughts on the music. First off, unlike the first game, while we didn't have the original Pac-Man World tracks in master quality, we did for Pac-Man World 2, because David Logan, the original composer, actually has been more vocal with the community ever since the game's reveal. He even released the game's soundtrack in good quality on SoundCloud like a few years back. I'm guessing like 2021. But for some reason, just like the first game, the devs recreated the tracks again. Some do sound pretty good, but others do kind of feel off. Lower budget even when it comes to some of the instruments. I think I know why they recreated these, but I'll mention it in a moment. Full honesty, sometimes the game feels more like a reimagining than a remake, because some of these levels are designed a lot differently from the original game, mostly for the better. The underwater levels are no longer a slow auto-scrolling mess, and even take advantage of the water controls they teach you in the bare basics, which in the original only like 2 levels use those swimming controls. The bosses are another thing. Rather than just Clyde having a unique mech and then the other ghosts just having the same ghost mech, this time they actually did unique bosses for each ghost. And it's awesome. They even take advantage of the area's level elements, such as Inky's using the trampolines, Pinky's having you ice skate away from an avalanche. That's mixing 2 levels in one. That's pretty cool. And then Blinky's having you flip various switches to trigger lava. Just like, I think it was the Volcanic Panic episode, or not episode level, is because they called them episodes in the first repack. Oh, in the post game? Oh my god, if you thought the main game was difficult, better rack up some lives or turn on easy mode, because it gets way more serious. I won't say much story-wise, but each area now has a harder version of one of the main game's levels. And remember that recreated music that I mentioned a while back? Well, these levels actually have completely new remixes. That could be why they exist, because they reuse a lot of elements from the regular versions of the theme. But my god, they are bops. They go hard. In fact, the Bare Basics remix was actually used in the reveal trailer. Despite me nearly losing it on some harder levels, but to be fair, anyone has. I think World 2 Repack is such a fun game, even better than the first one, and I cannot recommend it any more than I already do. It plays well, it sounds great, it looks amazing, and the best part is we're getting DLC as mentioned. This remake is a love letter to fans, and I'm not kidding when I say that.
To end things off, Pac-Man World 1 and especially Pac-Man World 2 are games that are really special to me, and I couldn't be happier that they have these awesome remakes that are accessible to all players. And if you're into platformers at all, you should definitely check these games out, and I hope Pac-Man World 2 Repack does well enough for Bandai Namco to greenlight not only a remake of Pac-Man World 3, but it would be another dream come true if we finally got a Pac-Man World 4. Before I head out, huge shout out to Pac Approved for joining me in this retrospective. He's an even bigger Pac-Man fan than I am and makes tons of cool videos and fan art revolving around the series that you should definitely check out.
And a special thanks to you two, man. It's an honor making stuff for this fun festival franchise. Despite the many ups and downs we hit, I really hope more cool things like this happen for years to come. We'll eventually get some random maze game again. I mean, you already know how that goes. Another Pac-Man Battle Royale or something like that. But to know Pac-Man World now has a new dedicated team is hope for what the future holds. Especially since Namco did put out a survey around World 2 Repack's release, asking if fans want to see World 3 Repack and more. And all I want to say is that if anyone from Now Productions, which is the Repack team, if any of you guys are listening, good luck, because that game is a doozy. Stay awesome, goobers!
But anyways, that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what are your thoughts on the Pac-Man World games.